Joined now by Vicki McKenna for our weekly Culture Cast segment. Vicki, good to see you.
Great to see you, Duke.
Well, I think we can say it's political correctness, wokeness has escaped culture campus. Right now, privilege, which used to be one of those things they talk about at college campuses all the time, now we're hearing it from the White House and defenders of Joe Biden. Bottom line is that if you're upset by all of these backdrops, by all of this lag in time for getting your stuff out of ships, the empty shelves that we're about to see all over the stores, it's just your privilege, isn't it?
Yeah, you check your privilege.
Check your privilege.
This is what the Washington Post writer Christina Pesta said. Look, folks, empty store shelves, bacon at $12 a pound, the impossibility of finding a reasonably priced used car, all kinds of issues with you maybe not being able to afford your heating costs this winter. You know what? You just need to pipe down. You need to be a little bit more grateful, you spoiled, rotten white supremacist, and check your privilege because, our ancestors had it bad. This smacks of when I was a kid, I used to walk uphill in both directions in a blinding snowstorm. And you kids can ride the bus. It sounds like the stuff your parents used to tell you when you'd whine a little bit about something being a little bit hard. So never mind the food shortages or the basic shortages or the fact your heating fuel is going to explode in cost. Because you just need to be a little bit more grateful and realize that others had it bad once too.
Yeah, I don't see how you could complain. I get that you're going to go without necessities and you're going to have to pay way more than you usually do. But look, Secretary Buttigieg got to spend 2 months with his newborn baby.
Yes, that he obviously gave birth to.
Yeah, that's
clearly.
That's not privilege at all, isn't it?
It's not privilege for all of those folks to hop on private jets and fly over to the latest climate summit. No, it's you wanting food at reasonable prices and you wanting to be able to afford to heat your house in the Midwest. You are such an ungrateful Karen.
When is the rest of America, half of America, going to realize that the Biden administration doesn't like Americans? On top of these sorts of things, you deserve this kind of stuff. We have, especially if you're in the flyover country, you deserve these kinds of, you need to learn what it's like to live like the third world countries. But even that, you and I have talked about this before, to me, the single biggest example of privilege is unvaccinated illegal immigrants crossing the border, being sent directly to your home on American jets, American planes, and you, however, having to be taking the jab because, as Americans, you just need to learn. Or
get fired.
Yeah, you got to get fired. You won't be able to go get on planes. You can't do all these things because, you check your privilege and do what's right for the country unless you were an illegal alien who didn't even have their measles shots, let alone their vaccinations for COVID, and you get bussed or flown right into your backyard.
Oh, you get all sorts. You get an array of privileges. You get an array of accolades, as long as you're not a citizen of the United States. And if you're from Afghanistan, for heaven's sakes, what we're going to do is not actually have Americans protected. We're going to fly you in exactly the same thing. We'll make sure you get everything you need. And then when you gripe about it, we're not going to say, hey, you can always go to Pakistan and put you on a plane and send you home. No. We are going to fundamentally alter our culture, never demand that people who are in this country illegally or people who are not citizens of the United States ever assimilate to our culture, because, of course, we're a bunch of bleeding, spoiled, rotten, privileged white supremacists. No. We're going to treat you as if you are gold. By the way, going back to the elites, you think about this unbelievable elitism and this unbelievable, disconnect with the reality of what average American experiences. I would just like to see a couple of things, and I don't think I'm asking for a lot. Number one, I want all the Haitians, I want all the Afghanis, I want all of the folks who are in here from the third world with no education, seeking social service benefits and handouts. I want them to live in Marin County. I want them to live on the Gold Coast in Chicago. I want them to live in Martha's Vineyard. At the same time, I want all of the folks who live in those special protected enclaves where poverty and scarcity never touches them to be forced to live for 1 week in a medium-sized city in Wisconsin where they have to go to the Target and have absolutely nothing on the store shelves, while trying to figure out how they're going to fight the big lady in the meat section of the Woodman's to get that last pound of bacon. I want them to have to experience a little bit of the pain that they seem to be blowing off because none of it touches them.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? How many Haitians can you fit in Obama's Martha's Vineyard mansion? It would be an interesting
what do you
exercise.
Think? 10,000.
Easily.
I'm going to go with 10,000, and that's a good start. But this is your typical elitist privilege. They do not care that we're miserable. They do not care that we're broke. They do not care that we're unemployed. They do not care that we're being threatened. They do not care that this country is divided. They don't care our military is falling apart. They don't care that China just tested a hypersonic missile and put it into orbit around the globe without anybody even practically realizing it. They don't care about any of that because none of it affects them. And so, you just had Joe Biden come out today and say 28 million kids age 5 to 11 are going to be forced to get the vaccine. Right. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
After the break, let's talk about, are there any consequences anymore for the left's elitism? Let's talk about why do they not seem to be afraid of what may be a landslide election against them? Well, let's talk about that after the break with consequences. Back again with Vicki McKenna for CultureCast. Vicki, let's talk about the consequences. Are there, we know that if you are a Black Lives Matter person, if you are Antifa, you're burning things down. We know that if you're a high-ranking Democrat politician raping little girls and going to Epstein Island, we know that there are no consequences for you. But will there be consequences for Democrats, the entire political Democrat cult, for all of this thumbing their nose at Americans, right? They don't seem to even care anymore that they're insulting, they're double talking 60% of the American population.
So they loathe us. They loathe and despise the concept of representative democracy. They're biding their time, I think, until they can do away with the ability to give us a say in our government at all. But, people say, well, surely they will change because after the midterms, when they get wiped out in the midterms, and I 100% believe they're going to get wiped out in the midterms. I think that is a foregone conclusion. I think the Republicans could go streaking in the quad and still win in a landslide in the midterms. And so then you have to ask the question, well, why doesn't it seem to be altering behavior? Because if you're interested in winning elections and the independents think you're insane and hate everything you've done, wouldn't you tack toward the center? Wouldn't you change the types of demands that you're making? And the answer is they have one last shot to get as much done, to push as much beyond the outer limit of the Overton window as they can, and they're going to take that shot. They will just simply then regroup to fight another day. It's what they did when the Democrats had 100% power when Barack Obama was president. They did as much as they could get away with, knowing they were going to lose elections, because you don't often have enough power to get big things done. And so you're going to see them try to accomplish as much as possible, whether it's universal basic income, whether it is a de facto amnesty for millions of people, whether it is fundamentally altering the rules on voting, whether it's obliterating the filibuster. They don't care if they lose. They'll win elections in the future. And so they have an eye to the long game. There was a famous a speech that was given by the general in Vietnam after the United States pulled out of the war, and he essentially said, "We knew we were going to win because the United States fights in 5-year thought processes. Our wars last 100 years, so we knew we were going to outlast you guys." Because we were more tenacious and we were more dedicated and we were more determined. And that's the Democrats in the United States. They are more determined, they have a longer vision, and they are far more tenacious than we are.
Well, and one wonders, even if you get a likable and competent Republican in office, my experience with Republican governance is that once you take power, you start from where you are. So if the Democrats push things 1,000 degrees left, that's just the normal, right? The idea that Republicans are going to go in and root up all that stuff that was just passed and kill it, I've not seen them do that very often.
No, not at the state level. You almost never see it. Trump did it as president in some meaningful ways. in an executive capacity, but you are not going to see that happen. Maybe you'll see one or two nominal reforms. Maybe you would see some really substantial reforms. Remember when Scott Walker was elected, we did get the substantial reform of Act 10. Then we didn't get much after that. That was the one big reform, tapping out, I'm done. And then the Republicans figured they did their hard thing. And so now they can tack back toward the center. Now they can go back to their bipartisan compromises. And by the way, bipartisan always means the ever greater ratchet to the left of policy and culture. And so I'm not super optimistic either. DeSantis is a shining star. If DeSantis becomes the presidential candidate, does he all of a sudden forget the girl who brought him to the dance, which of course was pushing back, undoing bad things, and embracing serious reform?